When it comes to interior lighting, most people ask a very simple question. Should I use HDRI or sunlight? But that question is incomplete. The real question is, what problem am I trying to solve in this scene? In this video, I'll light the same bedroom interior twice, once using HDRI and once using sunlight, and explain how each decision affects realism, control, mood, and efficiency. This is not about which one is better, it is about choosing correctly. HDRI represents the entire environment outside your scene. The sky, surrounding buildings, ground reflection, and atmospheric light, captured as a single lighting source. When you use HDRI, you are letting the environment decide how light enters and fills the room. So by implication, when you use HDRI, light is soft, global, and evenly distributed. Shadows are less directional. Mood is influenced by sky color and environment. HDRI is best when you want natural looking light quickly without controlling every direction. Sunlight, on the other hand, represents specific moments in time, a clear sun position with a strong direction. When you use sunlight, you are making an intentional choice about where light comes from and what it should emphasize. To make this comparison fair, I'm using one bedroom model. We're going to use the same material, the same camera position, the same exposure logic. The only variable is the lighting decision. So without further ado, let us jump right into our scene. So I have this bedroom model, and you can get this same model via the link that I've posted within the video description. What we want to do is to create our lighting system first with HDRI, and then we move to the sun lighting. Eventually, we're going to see how the both of them work. So the first is the setting up of our scene. Of course, let's set up this scene like we talked about in some of our tutorials, that in such a space like this, you may need to use your section plane, and then you have a clipper tool automatically created once you use your section plane. I've already done that so that we won't get bored, and I've already set materials, and they are also made available for you to practice with within the file. Now let's set up our scene quickly. Let's go to the section tool and just let's activate our section cut, right? I'm going to go to the settings and set up my frame. So let's go to our scene for HDRI. Then we'll come to the aspect ratio section, and we want to change it to 5:4 landscape. All right, all of this should have been set within the scene because I have all of this set for you. So all you need to do is just test your light setup. Now I want to start with the HDRI, like I've said. So what did I do? So let me turn off the sunlight now. So if you look at the scene very well, I've already used some artificial light setups, so you don't have to set anything here. You'll meet them within the scene. I have all these components, all of the textures have been dealt with, right? So let's go to our scene. The scene is set now. So the next thing we want to do is to go to the light setup itself. So I have the dome light here, which you can always take from here. You can pick your dome light from the light tools, the very light tools, and drop anywhere within the scene. It doesn't matter wherever you drop it, it doesn't really matter. So let's come to our scene, and then without the dome light, just with the default environment light that comes with V-Ray, let's see how the scene looks like. The scene is pretty dark, nothing is visible. We can only see a little of the environment light by default coming in, so it is really nothing here. So the next thing we want to do is to come to the dome light. So let me activate the dome light now, and then I've used a texture. It's called the Urban HDRI, right? You'll find that within the files that has been attached. Come to the texture placement, and you can tweak this to whatever you want. But as you can see, I'm using minus 120.8 degrees, right? So let's come here to the dome light, and I've set the dome light to 30. So you can play around with all of this and see within few seconds you can already put this in place. You don't really need so much technical decisions to make. You just need few clicks and then you are set up, right? Let's try and see what we have with the HDRI in place. So we can see our scene came up brighter than we had before. Interesting, right? So let me come to the V-Ray frame buffer posts. I'm gonna come with the exposure. Let me turn that on, and automatically we see. So there are settings that I've done. So we can lower the exposure or bring that up a little bit. Depends on you. So you can just tweak this. But generally, let's leave it at 4, at the exposure value at 4. So fine. And then the highlight, I can tone the highlight down to about -1 as well. So maybe, or maybe even bring it up a bit. Okay, fine. Also, my lens effect, all of this. So the lookup table, I've attached the file as well. So the lookup table is also important. So these are the post-production processes that I use within the VFP. So they are important. Then my saturation, you can study all of this. So let me turn it off. So the saturation is not really needed. Let me turn that off because I didn't really do much there. Then the LUT, you just include the file size, and then you turn this down to 0.315. You can play around with the HDRI and see how the light behaves, right? You can see the soft shadows around different areas. You can see this area, the shadows are really soft. The shadows are soft. That's one of the characteristics of using HDRI. So there's no drama. So basically, most of the time, you have your HDRI casting soft shadow, and these shadows, you cannot control them. You cannot control how sharp or how blurry they appear, right? So let's see if our supporting rectangle light, which is by the window side, changes thing, right? You can see, so this is fine, and that's just 10 intensity. Now we've seen how it goes. We can see how that works. So let me turn on this light. So basically, you can see with few clicks, we saw how our HDRI just came into being. So that is the beauty of using HDRI. Now, let us play with the angle of our HDRI. So come to the dome light, come here to the texture placement and rotate horizontally. And then immediately we see different light bounces, and then we can use that to decide. So that's how far we can really go with the HDRI tweaks. So it really has limitations of how much you can tweak the light that comes from the file. All right, so we can see that. So but then it instantly gives you very realistic scenario, which is fine, and it's also relatable because it's simulating the environment. Let me just try and use another HDRI file, and let's see the difference. So this is another HDRI, and we can see how the HDRI influences our mood. So you use HDRI for quick results, quick mood setup, quick realism. So we can see this looks really awesome. So we can tweak that depending on what we want, but I love this. So this casts some soft evening shadow around this, emphasizing this part. With this as a shadow is now, we cannot really control how sharp it is, cannot control how blurry it is. We can just live with this and probably brighten the HDRI, by setting the intensity and all. So this is fine. This is fine. So let's return to the former urban setup. All right, so this is fine. Let's give it what we had before. Fine. And now we can preview finally and see what this gives us. All right, and this is what the HDRI result looks like. Let us see what we have with the sunlight. Now let's switch to the sunlight view. Sometimes if you want to deal with sunlight alone, you might have to have your exterior context ready. With HDRI comes the environment image, but with sunlight, you might need to manually place that yourself. All you need to do is to create a plane, and on this plane, you can just go to File, click on Import, go to where the file is, right? So our file is PNG. So just change that to PNG. If it's JPEG, you can leave it as JPEG. So this is the file. Just click and then make sure it's on texture, not image, not new matched photo, right? Texture, then import. So once you import, you can drag and fill the plane with that and resize. So now I have this environment just to simulate the environment. So let's see what setup we have for the sun. So I'll come to the lights here and I want to activate the sun. So this is the sun here. Deactivate the dome light, but still leave the rest of light setup, right? So they are really gonna be used for both scenarios, like I've said. So as it is by default, let us try the render interactive. You can see what is happening here. We want to move this shadow. You can come to the time. And also if you have a specific time zone that you want, you can select from a lot of time zones here, right? You can just set your calendar here. So all of these things you can explore, right? Continue to drag this. And as you can see, our scene, the shadow cast is moving. And then let's bring it a little bit downward. The month, we can tweak that as well. But left to me, this is good, but it still has a lot of limitations because you have to do a lot of work to really set some things right. So what I do is come to this. I always want you guys to learn principles and not just how to render. With one working principle for realism, you can really become the best at any software you hold, right? So this is what I do here. I come to custom orientation. One of my students asked me one day, he said, it's like you know how the sun direction goes. You just tweak like you know already. Of course I do. Of course I do. That's the reason why it's good you are here. I'm going to show you this in just a very simple step. All you need to know is to acknowledge some few things. So let's turn off this and then turn on the custom orientation. We will see that automatically the scene will be darker, and then you see the scene is really dark, right? So what do we do? I want you to know something. The way SketchUp interface works in relation to the V-Ray custom sun. This is Y, this is X axis, and this is minus Y axis, this is minus X axis. So what you need to do is you go to your plan view and go to top, right? So let me change this to parallel projection. You can see this is the Y axis. So the green always represents your Y axis, and then the red represents your X axis, and then obviously the opposite represents minus Y. This represents minus X, and that's exactly how it is. So that's how your sun rays obeys you. So what this represents is the horizontal movement of your sun, and what this part represents is the vertical movement of your sun. And automatically the vertical movement of your sun simulates the time of a day. It's just exactly as the sun moves. You can see, look at the sun rising up, and it goes on, and then it goes, as it is here, it is at noon. So it is at noon time. You can also look at the simulation here. You can see how the sun travels. So it is actually very, very beautiful, guys. So what do I do in this case? Now I know this Y represents my green axis, and then I just visually look. So that means this is my building. This is where my building is. If I want the sun to cast shadow on the bed, what do I do? My building is facing the green axis. It means my sun is directly facing the bed like this. So what I need to do is to bring the sun to the side here, right? To the side of the bed, because I want it to look straight through this window. If you want to move your sun horizontally now, what you do is to move it here, right? So that it comes around here and looks into the side of this bed. So this is where it is. And then if you want to raise it up, you raise it up this way. So let's do that practically and see what exactly we are talking about. So I want a dramatic scenario where the sun casts shadow through this window, which means I'll be looking at something this way, right? Can you see? I'll be looking at something like this. And I also want the sun not to spread everywhere this way. I want it to really come very close to the bed. So that means I'll raise my sun up, and you can see the movement here. You can see the movement here. So let's see if I can get my sun to be cast on the flower vase here. Let's see. So the flower vase should be around here. I want my sun to be cast around here. So that means I'll move my sun around here. Good. But because my sun is too high, it's not reaching this part. Let's see. What a lower angle will do. We can start seeing that. Okay, 25, and then let me take this here. So this is what I want. So basically, this is how you tweak your sun rays. You can see the highlight on this. This is beautiful. You can see this highlight, and then I set my size multiplier to 4. I've said that multiple times on this channel. So the higher the value of your size multiplier, the blurrier you have the edges of your shadows that is cast. So if it is at 1, it will be sharper. So the edges will be sharper. You can see the difference here. should complement your composition, or else sun can actually complicate scene if you do not use it very well with a good composition. You can see you can make a scene so complicated, but with the right composition, it can create emphasis to the viewer's eye. Right now, let me raise this shadow up a little bit. All right, so I want it to be something like that, so we can see the drama here. So if you look at the intensity multiplier, it usually comes by default and it's set as 1, right? But that one can be really harsh, So sometimes I even go as low as 0.0 something, right? So, but this is 0.1, which is really low, but it usually would depend on what fits your scene, right? The viewer's eyes is directed towards this area, which is what I want. So that's the advantage of using sunlight. Now, this is my scene without HDRI. If you compare both HDRI scene and the sunlight scene, you see that there is more drama with the sunlighting setup than the HDRI setup. Once we are done with this, I would like to combine the both of them, and then we'll see how combining them also looks like. I prefer the both of them now. You can see that the sun is just very soft here and everything just looks really good. Let's move to the next thing. HDRI lighting has a few clear advantages, especially for interior visualization. First, it is fast. With HDRI, you can achieve believable lighting very quickly without spending time adjusting multiple light sources. Second, it produces soft realism. Light fills the space naturally, creating smooth transitions and gentle shadow that feel believable. And third, it requires fewer technical decisions. You're not constantly managing light direction or intensity. The environment handles most of that for you. However, HDRI also has limitations. Because the light is evenly distributed, it often lacks drama. There's less contrast and fewer strong highlights to guide the viewer's eye. And since HDRI is not strongly directional, it offers less storytelling control. You don't fully decide where light should emphasize within the space. So HDRI works best when speed and natural balance matter more than visual impact. On the other hand, sunlight brings a different level of realism. Sunlight also has its own clear advantages. Sunlight brings a different level of realism into an interior scene. Its strongest advantage is realism cues. A clear light direction and defined shadows immediately make the space feel natural and believable. Sunlight also creates visual hierarchy. It helps you control where the viewer looks first, using light to emphasize important areas of the room, and it improves architectural clarity. Forms, edges, and spatial depth becomes easier to read because light has intention. But sunlight also has limitations. It is easy to overdo. If the sun is too strong or poorly placed, the scene can quickly look harsh or unrealistic. And sunlight requires composition awareness. You must think about camera angle, shadow placement, and balance. Otherwise, the lighting can work against the design. So, when should you actually choose HDRI for interior lighting? Choose HDRI when speed matters. If you need a believable result quickly, HDRI allows you to light the scene without heavy setup. Choose HDRI when you want neutral realism. It gives balanced, natural light without strong drama, which is ideal for calm and consistent interiors. HDRI also works best when the space relies mainly on indirect light. Rooms with limited direct sunlight benefit from the soft environmental feel HDRI provides. And finally, choose HDRI during early design stages when your goal is clarity and exploration rather than the final presentation. When should you choose sunlight for interior lighting? Choose sunlight for final presentations when the image needs to feel polished, intentional, and ready for clients. Choose sunlight when a strong mood is required. Directional lights and shadows help you create emotions and atmosphere in the space. Sunlight is also ideal when the architecture must read clearly. And choose sunlight when you want visual storytelling, when light is meant to guide the viewer's eye and highlight what matters most. Sunlight is not just illumination, it's a design decision. Professionals don't choose one lighting method permanently. Instead, lighting is layered. HDRI is often used to establish the base exposure. It provides soft, balanced light that defines the overall brightness of the space. Sunlight is then added for emphasis. It introduces direction, contrast, and helps shape the room visually. Artificial lights are used for storytelling, to highlight key areas, support mood, and guide the viewer's attention. Each layer has a purpose, and that's why lighting is not about a single choice. In conclusion, HDRI and sunlight are not competitors, they are tools. The difference between an average renderer and a professional one is not the renderer, it is the decision. If you want to learn how to make these decisions consistently, that's exactly what I teach in my full training. Let me know in the comments which lighting approach you use most and why. If this video helped you make better lighting decisions, you'll find a lot more value on this channel. Subscribe for professional visualization tutorials focused on realism and workflow. I'll see you in the next one.